All right, we are going to go ahead and get started. Just a quick note, I did not get the video uploaded to my YouTube channel yet. There were a lot of system errors going on Monday, so every time I was opening something, it was closing, and then I'd open it again, and it'd close, and it was very frustrating. So we are going to have a bit of time today to talk a little bit first about your argument assignment, and then I want to talk to you guys about the research for your argument. I'm going to show you where you can go to learn a little bit more about different topics. I know several of you have messaged me about topics, and we've been kind of back and forth about different topics that you may be able to choose. I'm going to explain to you guys how to find a topic and then go through that checklist to make sure that it's going to work. Some of you message me with words, ideas, phrases instead of a topic. So it's important that you start thinking about this as a topic, and you have to understand the framework of what you're looking for in order to understand what your topic is or what it can be. And then we're going to talk a little bit about your blogs. I will show you where your blog is. Your blog is not going to open until 10:30. I do that for several reasons. Several of you are still kind of focused on your computers right now instead of listening. So I won't open it up until after we've gotten into the materials and right before it's time for you guys to actually do it. The blogs, I'm going to show you how it works, how it functions, and then you guys will be able to do that as well. Okay, the first thing we're going to do is talk a little bit about your assignment. I wanted to spend a little bit more time looking at the assignment and looking at where you guys were at, so I didn't want to give you the assignment until after you had started thinking about your topics and started looking at what is out there for your topics. I have the calendar for the rest of the semester listed on here. So you guys will be able to see what we're doing for the rest of the semester. I even included like an actual calendar. So let's talk about each aspect of this assignment. So the introduction, the reason that we do the rhetorical analysis before we actually do this piece is so you guys understand what are the tricks and the techniques that authors use to create ethos, logos, and pathos. You are not going to talk about ethos, logos, and pathos in this essay. You are just going to use them. You are going to use logic to persuade your audience. You are going to use logic to combat or refute your opposition. You are going to use ethos through your research. You are going to establish your own credibility through bringing in credible authors. You are also going to establish maybe some pathos. Now for some of you, you're going to have more pathos than others. Some of you may use a story to frame your piece. And we talked a little bit about stories, using stories on Monday. Remember that you are not part of this essay at all. So you're not saying, I think that, I feel that, blah, 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 blah. Get that out of there. Make sure it's not in there. Just say it. So make sure that you are not telling a story from your perspective. Also be very cautious with personal stories. Because again, pathos is the one that our feelings are going to vary from one person to the next person. So you want to be very cautious with using pathos because you may think that you're influencing people and you may not be, or you may be turning them off in a different way. So be very careful with that. So for this assignment, you're going to write a researched essay revealing your stance on an arguable topic that is of interest to you. This, and I said this like 4 times on Monday, this is not for the video, a pro-con paper. You're not giving me the positive aspects of this topic and the negative aspects of this topic. You are arguing for one change, but to do that, you need to investigate what the problem is, your solution, and then deal with the opposition. So there's a difference between persuasion. When you see an advertisement, you're only getting that perspective, that one perspective. And that's the biggest difference between persuasion and an argument. An argument is going to deal with the opposition. You are going to respectfully deal with the opposition. So you're going to first pick a current relevant topic that has two sides, at least two sides. It can have more than that. You're going to research what's being said on both sides of that topic. Now, this is something I want you guys to make a note of. You need to have at least one piece of research for the opposition. At least one piece of your research needs to be for the opposition. Why do you think that's so important?
Well, you gotta have a reason that you're arguing against something. You gotta have something you're arguing against and using their point as a counterpoint. And proving your point over their point would be kind of backing for yourself.
Okay, so it's going to help your paper, it's going to help your portion of the paper, but why do you need research? Why can't you just say, oh, some people might believe that?
Have evidence?
You want that evidence. So you're still going to start with a claim, use evidence, and then your reasoning can be you refuting the opposition. So it can connect back to that claim in some way. So now, for that section, if you think of the CER, you're still going to have the C, the claim. You're going to have the evidence from the opposition, and now your R can become refuting instead of reasoning. So think of that section as claim, evidence, refute, evidence, refute, evidence, refute. It's good to have what other people say written down, so you're not just grasping at straws. One of the most disgusting things about an essay is when people are so general. Oh, some people might believe that. Ugh. Give me something solid. Give me some statistics. Give me some facts. Give me something that I can believe in. Remember on Monday we talked a little bit about my student who said, you know, so many people are killing their significant others in domestic violence and they're getting away with it. And he never gave me solid facts that showed me that that was actually an issue. So the whole argument was a moot point because he could not prove that there was an actual problem at the very beginning. Your opposition, if you have research from the opposition, number one, it's going to give you the evidence that you need. Number two, it's also going to help you take your blinders off and see the whole issue, which is, again, going to help you with your own argument. So you want to have at least one piece of research from the opposition. You are going to come up with an arguable claim, and you're going to use that arguable claim for your solution. So you have your problem, your solution, and then the counter argument. Problem, solution, counter argument. That's the way that your paper needs to be set up. You have a minimum of 2,000 words and a maximum of 2,250. So you have about a 250 word variable in the middle there. I need to see critical thinking. I want to see that you guys are not using yourself, using and pointing fingers at your audience. Remember, you're not going to have first or second person in this essay at all. So if you start saying you should know that blah, 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 that's not going to work because then you're pointing the finger at your reader, which is me and each other. It needs to be an APA format, so it's going to have that title page, it's going to have the abstract, and then it's going to have references. So whenever we're talking about that, what we just did as a works cited page, we're going to talk about references this time instead of works cited. It needs to have a visual element. So I want you guys to get used to incorporating a visual of some sort. The visual element can be a photo, it can be a graph, it can be something that you create based on information, or it can be something that you pull from your research. And I'll show you guys a few places that you can go today that will make that a little bit easier. But I want you to think ahead at this visual component, because the visual component is going to be, I think it's like 40 points of your piece. That will be the visual component, 35 or 40. It also needs to have at least 3 sources from the virtual library databases. These 3 are those academic journals. So it needs to have 3 academic journals. Make sure you write that in there, academic journals. I highly suggest that your academic journals, you make sure that they have authors. Try to make sure that they have authors. And then you have at least 1 additional appropriate source. So if you were to do a Google search, what sources do you not have to ask me about? Govs, and EDUs. EDUs and govs, you do not have to ask me about. Which ones are totally off limits? .coms and nets. Coms and nets, don't use. Govs and EDUs, you can use. What do you have to ask me about before you use this? Several of you asked me after. You didn't even ask me. You just put it in there. Orgs. Make sure that if you have an org, you ask me about it first. I have to do a lot of research on orgs, and some of you experienced that. I have to do a lot of research to figure out, is it a valid source, or is it just something that someone threw up there and got to choose? I created a website a few months ago, and they gave me the option of an org, net, or com. So it's important that I research that, and I can show you how I go through that process if you want me to on a one-on-one basis. But an org you have to have approved before you use it. So this essay is worth 200 points. So this is worth the final rhetorical analysis plus the final summary and response put together. You will see exactly how you're going to be graded. There's some general assessment guidelines. On the very back page, you're going to see the rubric. The rubric is exactly how I'm going to grade you. So you see that grammar and punctuation is just a very small portion of the essay. The in-text citations, the integration of the research and the sources, those all are involving the research component. So you can easily fail this paper if your research is not on point. So make sure that your research is on point. Those things, those research components, are going to make up the majority of your grade. The visual makes up, there's the integration of the video or visual, the use of the visual, so that's 30 points, not 40. So 30 points of this grade will be for the visual piece. You do have to deal with the counter argument. You do have to make sure that you have an effective, relevant argument. The structure of the paper and the format is going to be 25 points, so it's a big piece of that as well. Now if you turn to the second page there, the second and the third pages have your due dates. So they're written as a list, and then they're written in a calendar form. So by this Saturday, you guys are going to do your argument blog. Your argument blog is proposing the topic that you would like to choose, and I'm going to show you guys that here in just a few minutes. You are going to respond to at least 2 people, at least 2, by Monday, April 13th. So you might want to add that in, at least 2. Keep in mind that 2 is the minimum. You might want to do more than 2 just to be on the safe side. I have a lot of students who don't go through and respond accurately, so I prefer that you guys respond to about 4 people, and I'm going to show you guys how you can cultivate those responses. If you give me, ooh, good idea, you're not going to get any points for that. So I'm going to show you guys how to cultivate good responses here in just a minute. So when you come in on Monday, I'm going to give you guys your annotated bibliography. Annotated bibliographies are difficult, and they are surrounding your research. So in proposing your topic, I am asking that you guys do some research on that topic. You need to find out if there's valid research. Remember on Monday when we talked about my student who had a really good paper about the bringing hemp into a product use, but he had no valid research? That's the kind of thing that if we can cut that off right now and say, look, there's no valid research out there, so you're going to end up with a D or an F because you don't have the valid research that you need, we want to cut that off early. So if you can start working on your research, start finding your research for this piece, this is going to require some work. So if you can have those here on the 13th, then that will help you guys with your annotated bibliography. The 13th, you are going to work on your annotations, and I'll explain all of that on the 13th. But between the 13th and the 15th, you're going to have to practice with those. And those are going to be due at 9:30 on Wednesday, the 15th. That is also why I'm telling you, you need to make sure that you are researching topics that are researching pieces that have authors to them. Your annotated bibliography has to have an author associated. So I want you guys to get a head start on that. Your thesis and outline is going to be due Saturday, April 18th. I want to look at your thesis and outline because I want to really look at what your content is going to include. So this one is going to go fairly quickly. You are going to have more time in class to work or for me to answer any questions. Pretty much most of the time, we're going to have at least 20 minutes for you to work or ask any questions, get any clarification. So coming as prepared as possible is going to help you guys. The 20th. So the 20th, your completed annotated bibliography will be due by the end of class. So that day, you guys will spend working on that piece. April 22nd, you guys are going to do your peer review. We're going to do it in a similar format to last time. You will have more than one set of eyes on your paper, but you're not going to have a specific group. And I'm going to group you guys, I'm going to pair you guys up or group you guys up. You will do the peer review, so you're going to review during class time, and then you'll bring the peer review to me during our conference. Again, with the peer review, just like last time, because I think it worked really effectively, on my end, I saw better papers, I think, as a result of the first rough peer review draft. So when you come in with your peer review, I'm going to tell you what criteria you need to have. You're going to do the peer review, and then you are going to write the peer review and refine that draft for me. And that draft will be due April 25th, which is the Saturday. I've already warned my other class, that is also the Saturday of my bachelorette party. So if you're messaging me and you're not getting a response, it's because it's my bachelorette party. So try to get any questions that you have out by the 24th, because then I can answer those more quickly. Okay? The 27th, that is the Monday, you will conference with me. Those conferences will be just like what we've done before. So they're going to be one-on-one, me and you in my office. These conferences I'm going to give a little bit more time to, partially because we've been able to, some of your classmates aren't here anymore. Some of your classmates may appear but not have their papers done. So I have fewer of you to deal with, still a lot, but fewer of you guys to deal with, so I'm able to give you guys more time, dedicate a little bit more time. But it's not going to be a lot because we don't have huge blocks of time. So I'm going to open that time block up. 075 students will use the morning blocks or later in the day. You guys can use those blocks as well if you need them. So if you need something later in the day or earlier in the day, then we can do that. Your final draft will be due April 29th. April 29th is going to be a very busy day. So highlight that, mark it, whatever you need to do. If you are not here April 29th, you are not going to do well on the last paper. So make sure April 29th that you are here. For those of you who type slowly, you need to plan to stay during common time. You will have your final draft or your final essay that day. I'm going to give it to you. It's a one-page piece. It's not that difficult. But for those of you who type slower than others, you may need to stay a little bit longer so you can get your draft to me. You will have a draft, and I'm going to read the draft. I'm going to circle a few things, and I'm going to hand it back to you, and I'm going to say, fix this. For those of you who type quickly, you will probably be able to fix it during that class time, and then you will be done with your work. For the rest of you, for those of you who don't type as quickly, or for those of you who like to sit on things and think about it, mull it over, you guys will not have your final draft due until Monday, May 4th. So May 6th is reserved for those of you who are failing. So if you are not failing, you do not have to show up on Wednesday, May 6th. If you're not failing the class, you don't have to show up that day. That day is for those who are failing, so we can look at your options for future semesters. May 27th, during our conferences, I am going to do my best to get everything I can back to you to say, hey, these are the things that you need to do to get from this grade to this grade. But that does not include your argument. So I have a little bit of time built in that if we need to, then I can get that information to you. For those of you who are going to push yourselves, so you really want to get that A, or you want to go from that C to that B, you should plan on staying on Wednesday the 29th as well during common time. That way I can give you a list, and I should have your arguments graded. I should have most of your components graded by that point, and I can give you a list and say, okay, Jen, this is what you need to go do from this grade to this grade, and then you will have a little bit of time to finish those things. I have to have all of your grades in by Thursday, May 7th. So I cannot take anything. I will give you guys until the 5th to do any extra work, to redo anything. But I cannot take anything after that because I do still have to grade it. All right, questions on the assignment for the rest of the semester so far? It's nearing the end. Nothing yet? Okay. Well, I want to show you guys some places that you can go. And we talked a little bit about where to go for the research. But remember that part of this, and I want you guys to think of this as an investigative process. So don't go into it necessarily with a very strict mindset. Be open to looking at other options and be open to looking at different aspects of the options that you are interested in. The things I want you to remember, you're just right here. So don't think too far ahead. Some of you are over here with, how do I write this? Don't think about that yet. We're going to get to that point, but I really need you to investigate a good, solid topic. So you need to figure out what issue you want to change. And this is the part that I think if you frame your ideas around what you can possibly change, it's going to be a little bit easier for you. Remember, there are some topics that you have to avoid, but I want you guys to think about these other aspects, not these topics, but other aspects, and think about what you're interested in, but what you can make a change for. So remember, there are some things that we can't change. What are things that we cannot change? Perceptions. So we cannot change everyone's perception, and we have to be very careful with that. So when I was in school, I had glasses. It was the 80s, so we had glasses like the size of our head. So everyone automatically categorized me as a nerd because I had glasses. People still call me a nerd because I had glasses in high school. I was smart and I was a nerd. But they just classified me as that. They just categorized me as that. We cannot change everyone's perception. When I go to my high school reunion later this year, it's a 20-year reunion, but they're still going to say, oh, Martha, you can go hang out with your nerdy friends. They're still going to say those things because they still classify me because of that. I can't change their perception of me no matter what I do. I could be the best jock in the world, but they're not going to change their perception of me. So you want to be very careful with changing perceptions because you're not going to be able to do that. That's not manageable. What else can you not change? Yeah, their feelings we're not going to probably change.
Like laws, are you talking about that kind of stuff?
We can change some laws. What kind of laws can we change? Or can we impact?
Indiana state laws.
State laws. You want to be very cautious with federal laws because federal laws are going to require a lot more work and they are going to require a lot more research. And can we change the world? No. No, we really can't. Our laws in the U.S. are very different from the laws in other countries. So we have to be very careful when you're dealing with laws like Religious Freedom Act. Well, the Religious Freedom Act in the U.S. is going to be very different because our laws in the U.S., our freedoms in the U.S. are very different from that in, let's say, Syria. Laws are very different. So you're not going to be able to say everyone should enjoy religious freedom. That doesn't work. That's not solid enough. That's not something you can change. So be very cautious with something that is too big. The scope is too big. And I want you guys to think as much as possible about what direction your topic is going to go in. So kind of predict what the opposition is going to say. You can even research the opposition, what the opposition has to say, to determine if there's enough research out there, or if the opposition is saying something that is going to be able to help you narrow it down a little bit more, or if it's going to keep it too broad. I also want you guys to think a lot about your audience. So remember that it needs to impact us. We need to care about this. So it needs to be something that is going to apply, even if it's not directly, indirectly maybe, to everyone in here. So one thing that you can always do to tie it back to everyone in here, because one thing that we all have in common no matter what, is we all pay taxes of some sort. So if it impacts the economic impact, or there's an economic impact in the state of Indiana, then most of the time you can make that apply. But do we all care about what's going on with middle schoolers? No. So if you're talking about a topic, you need to make sure that you make it apply. If we talk about an example of this, I had a student who wanted uniforms in schools. And she is in Logansport. There's one Logansport middle school that has uniforms. The rest of them don't. It's really weird. So she wanted all of the school systems to have uniforms. She has kids in 2 different middle schools. I don't know exactly why. But she had 2 different kids in middle schools. So she talked about the economic impact for Logansport when students have uniforms. So she looked at the businesses, like the smaller businesses, not necessarily smaller businesses, but the businesses that have clothes that teenagers might wear, how they are going to not have as much impact, or they're not going to have as much money because they aren't getting fashion-forward students. Their uniforms are things that you can buy at JCPenney or Walmart. So Walmart and JCPenney are going to earn more money, but these places aren't. And she eventually flipped. When she was researching, she found out that it's going to benefit the bigger corporations more by using school uniforms than it would those small businesses. And then the small businesses may actually go out of business. And that's a big economic impact because the small businesses are employing people and so on and so forth. So she actually flipped during her research because she realized that the bigger places are going to benefit more from school uniforms than the smaller businesses. So keep in mind that you can make some of these topics apply, but you have to be very sometimes crafty with it. Sometimes you have to just chuck it and get rid of it. So the last part of this is proposing your topic. But again, you have to have some research before you can propose your topic. So the best place for this, if you guys are in Campus Connect, you go to the virtual library. Remember Kokomo, Logansport, and Wabash. And you go to the search and find. When you go to search and find, you have to go to articles. And there's this wonderful place called the Opposing Viewpoints Resource Center. So if you guys want to fire up your computers and go ahead and log into Campus Connect, make sure that you know how to get here, and then I want to show you guys a few things once again. So fire this up. If you already have a topic and you have it open, then see what's being said about your topic. And then I'm going to show you guys a few things about your topics. Go to library tab. So if you have no idea yet what you want to write about, you can always go to Browse Issues. When you click on Browse Issues, it's going to give you tons of topics. Keep in mind that some of these topics are absolutely off limits. Don't write about abortion. I don't care what form of abortion it is, don't write about it. You do not need to write about obesity. Don't write about it. Gaming, I'm sure it's on here. Video game violence, I'm sure is on here somewhere. Video games. Stay away from those topics. If you find a topic that you're interested in, let's say prostitution. When you click into this area, it's going to have a general description of the topic. For your research, which of these things do you need to use?
Academy journal.
The academic journals. The academic journals are the pieces that are going to benefit you the most. You have to have at least 3 of these academic journals. Which one of these should you absolutely stay away from? News. Why should you stay away from news?
It's not reliable.
So skewed. It's so biased. It is not reliable at all. Good. Because you have to have a visual component, if you want to look at statistics, you are usually going to see some sort of graph that you can use in your piece. Another place that you can use or go are the images. Images are effective to use as well. Remember that you have to document these images or these statistics. One thing that you can do with the statistics, if you find an academic journal and that academic journal has some information that you want to make into a chart, and I will tell you guys, remember your audience. You know I don't like numbers, right? So if you give me a bunch of text, a bunch of words with numbers built in there, it's going to really mess with the reader's eyes, not just me, but readers. So if you have a bunch of numbers, then you may want to create your own chart. You want to create your own graph of some kind. So if you find something here, then maybe you create a chart. How do you know if there's an author? Go down to the very bottom and you will see if there's an author. One of the things that I don't like about the academic journal or the Opposing Viewpoints Resource Center, they don't have all of the authors up front. In the Academic Search Premier, the author's at the top. This one you have to go way down to the bottom to see if there's even an author. So it does require a little bit more work. So once you think maybe I have a topic, I want you to look through the checklist and I want you to determine, is this topic debatable? Almost any of the topics that are in the Opposing Viewpoints Resource Center are going to be debatable. They're going to have at least 2 sides to them. But if it's not debatable, and when we're talking about debatable, remember we're talking on an academic standard. So remember the student I have, super mellow guy, and he said child abuse is bad? Yeah, that's not debatable. That's not going to be a debatable topic. Also make sure that it's relevant. I want you to be very careful with things that you can manage that are going to impact everybody in here. So if you have a topic that people in here are not going to care about, or you have a topic that you're not going to be able to manage that in the state of Indiana, I want you to put it on warning. So if you have topics right now, you've narrowed it down to some of your topics, I want you to look at those topics. If it's not debatable, get rid of it. If it's not relevant, get rid of it. If it's not able to be changed, remember again, you have to propose a change. You are proposing a law or you are proposing consequences to a law, or you're proposing a change to a law or consequences. So if on your list of things that you have, you can't manage a change, then get rid of it. What's the other part of this able to be changed? Remember, if you don't have research that shows that your suggestion is valid, what do you have to do?
Research.
And what do you need to look for?
The opposing.
Okay, I have a solution, but my solution has never been done in the state of Indiana. What do I do?
For other states.
Look for something comparable in other states. Again, be very careful with national laws. National laws are usually too big, so be very cautious with that. So if you have something that is a nationwide problem, probably need to chuck that. It needs to be researchable. So if you're looking at those academic journals and there's like one, you probably need to find another topic. The viewpoints and the featured viewpoints are not necessarily academic journals. So if you want to look at a topic, you want to research your topic a bit to see if it's acceptable, make sure that it is researchable as well. Make sure that there are academic journals regarding that topic. Again, it needs to be appealing to the audience. So we need to care about the topic. We need to be impacted directly by the topic. And then you need to check yourself, and you need to make sure that you are excited about it, but you're not emotional about it. So if you're looking at those images and you're starting to get tears well up in your eyes, you probably need to get away from it. If you're looking at the topic and you're reading it and you're thinking of a person who you know who experienced it, you probably need to stay away from it. Be very careful with topics that you are so closely associated with. But I also want you guys to know that you need to pick topics that you are excited about. So if it's a science topic, it's going to be hard for me, but I'm going to do my best, and you can choose the science topic, even though it's really difficult for me to understand. You can still choose it. But I want you to be excited about it. I don't want it to be something that you don't even care about at all. All right, any questions on your topics? So you guys are going to create a blog based on your topic. So a blog is essentially you getting on your soapbox and you saying, this is what I think about the topic, this is why I think the way that I do, this is where I think I'm going with this. Do you have any feedback? And then you kind of open it up. So think about it as you're the politician and you're coming to town. If a politician comes to a community and they haven't researched that community and they don't have enough information about the topic, what do you think is going to happen to them? They're not going to get a lot of votes, and they're probably going to get a lot of crap from their audience because they haven't done the work that they needed to. So for your blogs, you guys have to do a little bit of research. You have to know what it is that you want to say. So again, you guys cannot see this yet, but when you guys are ready, you are going to go to class sessions. You're going to go down to week 12, session 2. So for this blog, you're proposing a topic for your research argument essay. A paper proposal is essentially proposing the topic that you want to write about, but you also need to have thoughtful information, and that includes research. So you are going to have a working title of your paper. This doesn't have to be set in stone. This is just you getting an idea out. Your working thesis. So working means that it's in progress. So it's not something that's set in stone, but the earlier you get this out, the more I can help you with refining that. You need to have your reason for choosing this topic. So I want to see why you are choosing this topic. I want you to examine what the problem actually is. So remember that oftentimes people offer up a solution, but they're really not looking at the problem. So my student who wanted to, I think he wanted to legalize marijuana. The problem wasn't that marijuana wasn't legal. The problem was that so much of the taxpayer dollars are being spent on a non-habit forming drug. That was his problem. That's what he was seeing as the problem. So examine the problem, the causes of that problem, and the effects of that problem, and then you can investigate the solution. I want you to do a small, quick, maybe two sentences of an audience analysis. So you guys have done this already. This doesn't have to be as in-depth, but I want you to know and think about who your audience is and why they care about the topic, and what do you believe will help them, or what do you think will help them believe that there's a problem. So again, if we're choosing a topic that we don't all necessarily relate to, we need to show our readers why they should care about this topic. So in the earlier class, some of us were talking a little bit about topics. So a couple of topics that came up, one topic was PTSD. So if we don't suffer from it, or we don't know someone who suffers from it, we may not know and realize the impact that it makes on society as a whole. So that would be something that the author would need to make sure that he or she explains a bit more in depth. Another topic we talked about was addiction. So having addiction facilities. If you don't suffer from addiction, or you never have, or you don't know someone who suffers from addiction, maybe you don't necessarily relate to that. But we need to make sure everything relates. Another topic we talked about was athletes, the pay for athletes. Well, if you're not an athlete, or you don't care about athletes, then maybe you don't care about that topic. So the author needs to make sure that he or she relates that topic to the audience as a whole. So this audience analysis is you helping your readers understand why they should care about this topic. You are going to, there are two of them. So you are going to click into Argument Blog, and you're going to create a blog entry. For some reason there are two of them here, so I'm going to delete this. There you go. So you're going to click into Argument Blog, and you're going to create a blog entry. This is important, so make sure that you follow all the steps to this. You are going to use your name as the title. If you attach your file, you are going to get a 0 on your blog. Your blog itself is worth 20 points. So make sure that you are copying it from Word and pasting it in here. Otherwise, we're not going to be able to see it the right way. I am going to give you guys an example. I was sharing this with my other group. I have a lot of really great examples of argument papers. So this one is going to be a little bit easier for me to show you guys good examples. I don't have a lot of really good examples on everything. So this one I do have a lot of great examples on it. So I'm going to find my blog in just a minute or so, and I will show you guys what an effective blog looks like. So I will make sure that I post that as my example. Now the part that's going to get a little tricky, you guys have to respond to others. So pay very close attention to this, and if you need to take a picture of it, take a picture. You are going to post your blog, and then you're going to see your blog, and you're going to be like, where's everybody else's stuff? I can't see anybody else's stuff. Under your name, you have this, it's called a chevron underneath it. You need to click on that in order to see anybody else's stuff. You are going to see this. You're just going to see the assignment description, your blog, and you're going to have your name here. Some of you are going to email me over the weekend and say, I can't see anybody else's stuff. Make sure that you click on the chevron underneath your name, and you'll be able to see everybody else's stuff. So let me show you what this looks like for one of my other classes. So when I go into the blog, I don't see anything except mine. Hey, here it is. I could actually copy and paste this. I see mine, and that is it. When I click over here next under my name, I see everyone else's. I click on a name, and then I can read this person's piece, and I can comment on it. So you're going to get 20 points for your responses to others. So you're getting 20 points for your original blog. And what's the title of your original blog? Your name. And then for your responses, you are going to get another 20 points. How many do you have to do? At least 2, but I would like to see 4 responses. So again, go to class sessions, go down to week 12, session 2. You won't be able to click into this yet. Argument blog, click on it. Create blog entry, your name, and paste. And now I have pasted your example. The example that I have here is actually a group paper. So my students, a few summers ago, we ran out of time, so they decided to do a group paper instead. So our group paper was the state of Indiana should implement a transition program for those who are exiting the welfare system. So our proposal, eventually, this was just a working thesis, eventually we said that those on welfare should be drug tested and they should face mandatory counseling of some kind. So they should get financial counseling, not those who tested positive, but everybody should get financial counseling, they should get this, that, all kinds of things. So you can see why we chose that topic. This is why it mattered to me specifically. This is the problem, causes the effects, and then this transition program is what we ended up with. Not everybody in the class was on welfare, so they didn't all know anything about welfare, so I had to provide some background information for some of them. So in order to get sophisticated responses, you only have to do 2 of these, but again, that's the minimum. I want you to respond, think about responding to someone whose topic you don't care about. And I want you to politely explain why you don't care about that topic. So, yes, please don't be mean about it and say, this is stupid, I don't get it, I don't care. Please give them some feedback about why you don't care about that topic. So, an example of this, last semester I had a student who, she wanted to take technology out of the public school system. So, her readers got in there, and some of them were like, I graduated, I don't care about this topic because I'm not in the high school system, or I'm not in the middle school system, or the public school system. So they just didn't care about the topic. Some of them actually disagreed with it. A few of them said, wait a minute, if I didn't have technology in school, then I wouldn't have been prepared for college. So you can find someone who you disagree with and politely explain why you disagree with them. So again, be polite about it, not just you're stupid. That's not going to work. And then if you find someone who you agree with, explain your perspective on why you agree with them. It may be a personal story or it may be a personal experience of some kind. That is okay for your responses. And then if you feel so inclined, because again, you only have to do 2 of these, not all 4, respond to someone who responds to your blog. So if Tricia says to Cody, I don't really relate to your topic because of this, this, and this. Cody can respond and say, well, would you feel more connected to it if I added this in? This blog is to really help you guys kind of get your bearings on what's going to relate to the rest of the group, the class as a whole. So your blogs are due by 11:59 on Saturday. That will give Sunday and Monday morning very early morning, for people to respond. The earlier you get your blog done, the better it's going to be for everybody. So do everything that you can to get your original blog done by Saturday at 11:59. If you turn it in at 12:30, whatever, you're going to get 0 on the blog. There is no late for this. But you can still get feedback from others if you turn it in late. So it's better to turn it in and not get any points than it is to not turn it in. Even if you miss the blog due date, get your responses in by Monday's class. All right, any questions? Some of us have talked about your topics. I want you guys as much as possible to look at your topics and look over that checklist to make sure that it meets all the criteria. If you're not sure if it meets the criteria, then we need to talk about it. Any questions? All right, that is all I have for you guys. So if you want to look at your topics a little bit, research, see if there's anything out there, then go ahead and start doing that. What's that?
I clicked live out and look there.
Are you doing okay with it? It could work.
They seem to say.
Yeah,
in my
it
opinion,
is.
I think it is.
Yeah, well, it's highly debated. I usually have a couple of papers on it this semester. And there's a lot of information out there. A lot of it is based on religious beliefs and then the link to autism. So those are the two biggest, probably the biggest arguments on for the application. Here is my proof, and you have legit doctors who say, here is my proof that it's this way. So you have both. So, but it works, and that impacts people. Okay?
Everything I had is shit. No. There's nothing that interests me. Nothing. Nothing. Money. Money is the only thing that interests me. How can I debate? I just think I should just get a 0.
No.
Have you looked? This is really big.
This one here.
That's the Dream Act.
I thought about that too. Something that revolves around money. It's the only thing I can think of. But then I don't know how to pose it to the audience or any of that other stuff. I have no idea.
Okay, so you're not using the Dream Act.
Cost of living. Do what?
So maybe you need to look into the root of those problems before you deal with this problem.
I couldn't really apply this to that topic. This was more, this goes to this,
We've been giving all my pens away.
Okay. Okay, so it sounds like you're dealing with the education and you're dealing with the employment opportunities. So this is kind of employment and maybe some education.
Bigger businesses or bigger areas or section forests cutting down, going down there and line about it, I would try to find fair, that we're running out of resources.
There's nothing that interests me. Except writing down that, I can just dig right into it, but as for any of this, I'm really
So look for that top, like financial economy or economy. Is that interesting? Go up to the top. So it's up here, like the financial economy or finances. And this is what I want to do. I want to see what all those things and to see financial balances. And then we can start here to see what other topics we would like to.
very. So I can run that business.
Yeah, that business, we have to, business items that so we can start exploring like the economic growth. Those are the things that once you put in there, you will see some information. Start looking